there. Good evening. Welcome to Alan's Music Room. And tonight we are going to be talking about record stores and how awesome record stores were and how terrible it is that record stores don't exist anymore. We're going to get into a good discussion with a few guests in just a couple of minutes. First, I want to talk about a couple of upcoming shows. Next week on May 23rd, I've got the second half of an interview that I'm doing with a local blues guy called Hughes Taylor. Phenomenal guy, a great guitarist, good singer, great songwriter. I interviewed him a few weeks ago, and we got so chatty that we didn't cover half the stuff that we wanted to talk about. So we're going to have him back on next week. On the following week, the 30th of May, we're doing a show on SNL musical guests. We'll have just had the season finale of this season of SNL, so we're going to talk about the whole history of musical guests as hosts, as performers, skits about musical guests. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So let's get a few folks in here to talk about record stores. Hello, folks. How are ya?
Hello.
Hello.
All right. So let's go around the room and introduce yourselves and tell us where you worked, what part of the country it was in, how long you were there. Ready, go. Edward, you start.
Okay, I'm Edward deGruy, and oddly enough, I can say I was never officially paid by a record store at any point, because growing up in the late 60s and 70s, my mother was involved in the record industry and music stores and retail and all that kind of stuff, so I was always around her. And there was lots of, oh, hey, while you're here after school, go straighten those records for me. Go do that for me. I'll give you some comic book money or something like that. So I followed her from Record Bar to Musicland to Camelot to Sound. Oh, God, what was it? Anyway, this was all in Mobile, Alabama. So Gulf Coast, yeah, where there wasn't a whole lot of anything. And the coolest thing I can say about, or not coolest, the weirdest thing I can say about our musical experience there, from 1976 to Bon Jovi's Slippery When Wet tour, we did not see a major label act come through Mobile, Alabama, because Beaver Brown Productions screwed over Steely Dan, I think. And so we were blacklisted for like a decade.
Wow.
So we had to go
awesome.
to New Orleans, Pensacola, Atlanta, anywhere to see a show. But yeah.
Wow.
You know, that's so funny because
my musical thing.
Beaver Brown Productions, I haven't heard that name in 800,000 years.
I just looked them up the other day. They do still exist.
That's
Oddly.
hilarious. All right,
Yes.
Todd, tell us who you are and where you worked and for how long.
Okay, my story is part of, I think we started pretty much at the same time.
We did.
In Winter Haven, Florida.
Yeah.
We were both, I think, hired by she was Kathy Brightman at the time. She later became Maude.
Yep.
Which is kind of wild. After I was working in Lakeland, Searstown, and spending all of my lunches and most of my salary in her store. And I think she got tired of me hanging around. So she said, hey, I'll hire him just to get him from hanging around.
And you're like, well, if I'm going to spend all my paycheck anyway, I should at least spend it on stuff I get an employee discount on.
Exactly. So I think the Winter Haven store was, it started in 1985.
Yep.
And let me see if I can run down some names that you may remember. We opened up, it was Marty Borio.
Yep.
And you and me and Kathy Jackson. And from there, I would be hard pressed to come up with the original crew.
You're missing Caroline Hickman.
Caroline Hickman. How did I miss her?
I don't
know. Yeah, she was, and she had been around for a while. Her and Kathy were the veterans, and we were the new kids on the block.
Yep.
Before there was new kids on the block. And that was the black store that literally shined. It's what's ironic is the house that I've been living in for the past 20 plus years is literally right next to Spring Lake Square in Winter Haven.
Wow.
So I actually can walk out and go to where the store used to be. I think it's now a PC Metro or something. And that the whole shopping center has gone to decay. It just like a lot of the shopping centers do. From the Black store, I went over to the Winter Haven Mall store. We kind of waited until Carousel Records, which was a small local one, but very, they very much held their own for a local store. Specs had 85 stores at give or take, maybe not when we started, but when I left. And so they had a little more clout. And we had the split video and audio. I remember, and keep me honest here, but when we opened, our CDs was probably about yay big.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
One bin.
Exactly. I remember that very specifically.
And then all vinyl through the rest of the store. We had the 12-inch and the 7-inch records, of course, and then the cassettes. So we had most of the formats covered, and we had VHS and beta. So we covered everything, but that was kind of the heyday. And the coolest thing about being on the cusp of the CD market is we had all that exciting new music that was coming out in the 80s. And a lot of people say, there wasn't great music in the 80s. There really was. There was a lot of really good 80s music. Yeah. But we also had the 70s music and the 70s artists that were still doing things. And then when CDs came out, they started putting out the stuff from the 60s. So we were getting a little bit of everything. And it was an absolute blast. And we had, of course, Ticketmaster there.
I was going to bring that up a little bit later. Holy Ticketmaster. I remember
what I was thinking of.
I remember when the Ticketmaster machine got installed. Oh my God, the worst day ever.
Oh God,
yes,
it was horrible.
Yeah, I had a good experience with Ticketmaster.
Of the people that had Ticketmaster.
All right, Karin, give us a little introduction and where you worked and when and for how long.
Okay, so I'm Karin Johnson, and I started by working at Camelot Music, Perimeter Mall, Atlanta, Georgia. I think I started in '84, and I started when I was 15, worked all through high school. And then when I went off to UGA for my first year of college, I came back every chance I got. I came back and I worked, Thanksgiving break, and I worked Christmas break, and I worked spring break. I mean, I loved my job so much. And then I ended up getting a job at Polygram Records, and worked at Polygram for like 5-6 years. When I got laid off from Polygram, I walked out of my branch manager's office and I called my old Camelot manager, who was now at Gwinnett Mall and also in Georgia, which if you're a Stranger Things fan, aka Starcourt Mall.
Right.
I worked at Starcourt Mall for like 6 months until I then started working for Turtles Records and Tapes, only not at a store, in the office, in their home office. And that was Turtles, and actually at that point they had also gotten a Record Bar. But again, in the home office, not in the stores, but did occasionally go and do some work in the stores. But and then years later, once again, I had been at Sony Music. These record labels, they lay you off. When I got laid off from Sony, I started working part-time for my friend Don Radcliffe at Ella Guru Records here in Atlanta, in Decatur, technically. And they're still around.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they're still around. He's all vinyl now, which is crazy.
Isn't it? Okay, we're going to talk about this in a minute. But
isn't that funny? It all comes back.
It is incredible, the resurgence that vinyl has had. And, there's starting to be shops like that are now taking on like either a new life or new shops popping up that are devoted strictly. So record stores are kind of making a comeback. It's amazing.
A guy that I worked with at Turtles in the home office, he has recently, like maybe in the past year or so, he's opened a strictly vinyl store.
Wow.
I think he's in Marietta somewhere. As a matter of fact, he is in the strip center that one of those Asian massage parlors that got shot up.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that horrible?
Yeah.
So he was like 2 doors down from that.
Oh my gosh.
He knew the owner that got killed. Yeah, horrible.
Oh,
wow.
That's so sad.
Isn't it horrible? Oh, his post just broke my heart.
Yeah.
But so he started a vinyl store. It's insane how many stores are just strictly vinyl. I love it.
Maybe we'll now see the resurgence of the Peaches, like the Peaches wooden crates, like to hold the vinyl in. You remember those?
Yes.
I love those things.
Love it.
I had one up until about a decade ago, and I finally broke it.
Oh no!
Yeah.
So real quickly, my name's Alan. I worked at Specs Music. Started with Todd through like the early '90s. I started in '85, and Todd, I remember. It's funny that we were talking about Caroline a minute ago because the way that I got in was I'd gone to high school with Caroline. And she called me one day just out of the blue. And she said, hey, I'm part of the starting crew. I don't know if she was actually assistant manager or not, but she and Kathy had been sent to launch this new store. And she said, I'm part of the starting crew of this store. And I know that you've been wanting to work at Specs for a while. Do you want to come apply? And I'm like, I'll be there in 5 minutes. even though I lived 25 minutes away from there, I was like, on my way. So it was Caroline like just calling me out of the blue and inviting me in. And I'm like, so I've been like trying to get into Specs for, a while. And so then it just kind of dropped in my lap. But you mentioned in your introduction, the Black Store. And this was this was store number 38. It
20.
was,
20.
Were we 20? Which one was 38?
Oh, I couldn't tell you it was 38. The one in the mall was 44.
Okay, that's right. I remember that. You're right, 20. And it was
Geez, my memory's all gone.
I
remember numbers.
So the interior of the store was solid black. The walls, the floors, the ceiling, the fixtures, the counters, everything was solid black. We had a little bit of like tube neon lighting to accent the walls.
And
on the ceiling, and the front wall was big windows, so we had a lot of natural light coming in, and there was a lot of fluorescent. So it never felt dark, and it never felt like oppressive. But it was such a great store. It was so beautiful.
Pink neon in all of the windows, which was terribly expensive to keep going, and it had the logo in the window, the Specs logo. It was done all in pink. And then there was it was a like chrome ceiling that wrapped around.
Yes.
And they actually moved that over when they moved it to the freestanding. And it is still, now the freestanding store is now a Santiago's Latin supermarket. And it still has some of the chrome. Not the neon, but it has the chrome.
Right.
And it's like, wow. That's how many years old now?
Try not to think about it.
Yeah, when I walk in there every so often, and I go, well, gee whiz, this was where the jazz CDs were. This was the blues section. now this is the pork section. And
all right, so let's like set a date to the times that you were working. What are some of the big new release, like big event kind of releases that you remember coming out during your time? Like I remember Todd and I think this was actually when I was at the Lake Wells store, so I wasn't with Todd, but I remember when Michael Jackson's Bad came out, and there was a big controversy because they shipped it early, and it was like the scuttlebutt was that they knew stores would not resist the temptation to open it and sell it, which would give it extra copies sold and would guarantee that it would debut at #1 on the Billboard chart. I mean, it probably would have done that anyway, but they sort of like, slid it in a little early to guarantee that it would happen.
I remember that.
Yeah. So what are some of the other ones that y'all remember from your time?
I can look. No, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say we had, I think, 2 different things that were kind of monumental for us. When I was at Record Bar, one of my mother also dated DJs and musicians, and that was another reason she was in the industry. She'd run into this guy that had just come back from New York, and he knew all about Cyndi Lauper, and she was nobody at the time.
Right.
And he brought an album back that was like one of her early pressings. My mother freaking loved it. She got her ex-boyfriend at the college radio station to play it, and it became huge in Mobile, and then started like gathering from the rest of the world. And then in the early 90s, a good friend of mine I was in a band with and worked at a record store with went to Seattle and heard Nirvana when they were just getting started, and brought their he got like a cassette at one of their shows and brought it back and just wore that thing out on the radio, and everybody was listening to it, and they were calling the local radio stations like, play Nirvana, and they're like, who? Like, what are y'all talking about? So that was kind of our two big things that like we had come through our stores before like anybody else.
And that's funny. There's Percy. Hey, sweet baby. Percy Sledge.
Percy Sledge.
Nice.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember the day. I remember opening the box and seeing the Guns N' Roses album for the first time.
Oh, right.
Like, I don't think we had even heard Welcome to the Jungle yet, but this album comes out of the box, and we were like, what the fuck is this? Just the cover art. The cover art just blew us away. And we were like, this is something we got to pay attention to. And of course, it exploded from there.
Yeah.
So, okay, some other ones.
My story that I always think about is Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA.
Oh, man.
Whenever, whatever year that was, that during the Christmas season, that record was out. Camelot is, as y'all probably know, a national chain out of Dayton, Ohio, and they had apparently made some kind of deal with Columbia Records, and they bought a shit ton of product and shipped it to all their stores. And so they send us a memo with this crap ton of Springsteen, and basically said that from I guess it was like maybe a week or two before Thanksgiving through New Year's Eve, that we were to play one side of Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, every hour.
Yes.
Oh, all record stores did that. Oh my God.
Great record, but oh my God, after a while.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is at a time when radio actually plays, whatever's popular. So you hear it in your car, and then you see it on MTV, which I was obsessed with MTV. So I was so inundated with that album, which again, yes, great album, but it probably took me until the last 10 or 15 years before I could listen to it again. And now I enjoy it. And now it puts me back into that moment. But and obviously we didn't play it as often as we were supposed to, but we definitely played it a lot. And I remember, you'd put it on, and it was probably side one that started with Born in the USA, and that would start, and every employee would go, oh.
I'm kidding.
Oh yes. Todd, you got some?
Oh, there's a ton of them. Yeah. We were talking about early releases. I remember when they released the Beatles CDs, and we would get them on Friday night. And of course, the new release day was always on a Tuesday. And I would get a call from, you remember Beth Fath, the buyer?
Yeah.
I know her name.
She goes, I noticed there was a couple sales on the Beatles records before Street Date. I'm going, well, I don't know how that happened. She goes, don't do that again. Right. She says, now it's all, that was back when they had gone computerized and the sales were immediate as opposed to a little bit of carry on. So I remember that. The other thing that I remember was when Sgt. Pepper's came out. And of course, I had a employee that did a display, and they did it across the black ceiling, and it said it was 20 years ago today, and I was like, it's not that far off from the actual date. The other thing that I remember that kind of set everything off was and there's I'm sure everyone's heard the story of the person that said they were in a music store and someone said, "Hey, look, Paul McCartney was in a band before Wings."
Yeah.
Which I think is a myth that didn't happen. But there was two things that came close to that. About the time Pink Floyd put out Momentary Lapse of Reason, and we're talking about MTV, and everyone can still remember when the M stand for music. And they were playing Learning to Fly. And a guy came in and says, "I'm looking for that new group, Pink Floyd."
Yeah.
And I just rolled over.
Happened all the time with all the bands and all the musicians.
That new group, Pink Floyd. Well, we have the new record. Plus, we've got their catalog since 1967. You might want to check that out. The other one that I heard that I literally had to walk in the office and sit down because I couldn't handle it was the kid that picked up the record, and he looked and he goes, "Hey," it was a Frank Zappa record. He goes, "Look, it's Dweezil Zappa's dad."
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I have to sit down. I can no longer stand.
Who else had to convince customers that would come in looking for Teenage Wasteland? And you would and you'd give them whose next album, and they'd go, "Oh, I don't see it on here." And I'm like, "No, it's called Baba O'Reilly."
Right.
Like,
Right.
I swear. I had to tell people, I had to write on their receipt several times, you can return this if I'm wrong, because I'm not wrong.
Right.
Right.
Oh, that's hilarious. Another one. I remember when Slippery When Wet came out. And Bon Jovi had done 2 records and they were okay. And, so Slippery comes out and you're like, yeah, okay. The Rolling Stone review, I remember specifically, it said, if this album doesn't make them the biggest band in the world, nothing will. And then, of course, Slippery just went haywire,
right,
and just took over the world. So that was fun. Yes. Oh, sorry. Okay. So tell me some of the things like from in-store play, some of the things that you loved and some of the things that you hated, and were there ones that you got really like attached to?
Well,
wow.
I mean, there was a bunch of stuff that I ended up loving, and then there was stuff like you can't see. I'm Journey.
Yeah. You and Journey.
Yeah, Journey. Anybody who knows me and Journey. And I'm sure y'all had this with your fellow employees, is that you would all have your favorite stuff, and you'd want to play it, of course, as often as you could during your shift. And there were some people, like, for instance, I had a coworker, I loved him, but he loved Madonna and wanted to always hear Madonna. Well, for God's sake, that's another one you heard on the radio. It was all over MTV. I was like, if I hear Like a Virgin one more freaking time. So we would make deals with each other. Okay, when I go on break, you're going to play Madonna. And then when you go on break, I'll play Disney or Heart or, whatever it was that I was, making everybody listen to. But one thing, when you said that, the thing that popped into my mind, y'all probably laugh, but was that Mr. album.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember playing that in store.
And it was kind of like, you'd heard the one song on the radio and you're like, okay, and you put it on, and that was one that really grew on me. And also The Outfield was the same kind of thing, where it was like, oh, I really enjoy, and it was upbeat, and so I really enjoyed that. And those are 2 records that I can't hear them without instantly being back in Camelot.
Now that you phrase it like that, there are a couple of records that make me think of being in the radio store too. We got an import of Judas Priest Rock-a-Rolla when that first came out, with like the cap, the bottle cap, on the front of it.
Yeah.
And we cracked it open and listened to it there, and not knowing what they were going to ultimately be. So yeah, that one definitely. And Ozzy Osbourne's Diary of a Madman.
Ooh.
Oh man.
we wore that album out for like weeks. So yeah, I can't hear either one of those without thinking of being in a record store. Yeah,
Now that's
definitely.
cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'll bring back a tradition, Alan. Remember, every time we went to a new store to set it up, Kathy Brightman would have to the first album would have to be a Tom Petty record.
Yeah.
Always. You know, there was no question, there was no debate. Tom Petty was going to be the first album played in the store. That one, and the other thing I can remember is you were the 7-inch buyer, and you were
just 7 inches, really?
The store.
Stop it.
And I was generally in the back of the store working video and tickets and things like that. And I remember the first time you played. Now I'm going to draw a blank on the title. Queen.
Oh, man.
Queen. Here we are.
Oh yeah, Princes of the Universe.
Princes of the Universe. I was thinking Princes of the Universe. And the first time I heard that, I looked up and went, "Oh my God, Queen is back!" That was literally what I thought, because I was still kind of hurt over Hot Space.
Yeah.
Was it a kind of magic for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a kind of magic. It was pretty kind of magic, but still. And just hearing that, and it's like, that was the first Queen that really sounded like Queen. I had to go back, and because Radio Gaga was still kind of Radio Gaga. It was kind of that transition, but man, a kind of magic was Queen again. And
exactly. That's exactly how I felt about it too. Really quick, let me just get a comment in from one of our viewers. This is Dan in Scotland.
Wow.
What's up, Dan?
Right on.
He relates to a lot of this from having worked in Virgin Megastore in the UK. Cool discussion. Thanks, guys. Thank you for chiming in, Dan. We really appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Todd, let me see if you remember this. The one that I wore into the ground. There was backtracking a little bit. I was a big Prince fan, and I was like all about the extended family. So Prince had started this record label called Paisley Park, and Ed once described me as the only person that he ever knew that collected a record label.
Yep.
I had every single thing on Paisley Park Records. Okay, so there was this band called Maserati.
Yep.
And they were sort of a mix of rock, because they had a really great lead guitar player, and dance. And their first album came out, and I don't think any radio station anywhere in the world played their damn song. So, you know,
good album too.
But so I started playing the record, and I loved it. And every time I played it, somebody would buy a copy. Somebody would come to the counter, and they'd be like, "What is this?" And I would say, "It's Maserati," and they're like, "Sell me one right now." So I got to where I was playing all the time, because every time I'd play it, I would sell copies, 2 or 3 copies sometimes. And I'm sure that we were the only record store in the country that sold copies of Maserati.
Probably so.
And
I thought about that in the ages.
And you got sick of hearing it. Understandably so.
Again.
But there was a guy who owned the roller skating rink just down the street from us, and he booked Maserati to play in his, based on me introducing it to him and knowing that I sold copies every time I played it. He booked Maserati to play in his stupid little, roller rink. And
did they come by and thank you at least?
The funny thing is, I never got to meet him, sadly. But maybe 20 people came to this show, including me and my best friend. And they played that show like they were playing the biggest venue. I mean, they played that show, but it was sad.
I've got a similar story of a band that got a little bit bigger than Maserati did.
Everybody did.
I went into the Searstown one day just on a lark, and I walked in, and as just like anything, I'd walk by and I'd look at the record that was now playing, and I said, well, this is kind of interesting. And the second song was this weird guitar playing that was just something that I'd never heard before. The song behind it was, of course, You Really Got Me.
Oh, yeah.
And
Nice.
I'd never heard Van Halen before at all. And I was walking through the store and I had things in mind. I want to get this. I want to get this. Let me go check out the cutout bins. And when he flipped over the record, it was a girl. When she flipped it over, Jamie's Crying came on. I went, okay, over to the V's. They didn't even have their own tab. It was they were under the V's. And I picked it up and took it to the counter. And she says, "You're buying this?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Just started listening to it." I'm going, the guitar player is awesome. And I said, the singer is pretty unique as well. I said, the whole band is great. I said, I'd never heard them before. If you hadn't been playing it, I wouldn't know who these guys are. They're not getting any radio play. And she said, I normally work over at the South Florida store over on the other side of Lakeland. And she said, we had them in doing an autograph session and nobody showed up.
Oh,
Yep.
She said nobody showed up. She said they were the nicest, sweetest guys. She said they might have signed 3 records the whole time they were there. She said, I can't.
That was one of those things that always happened.
And I took it to school. I was still in high school. Took it to school the next day. And people said, what is this crap? I said, it's what you'll be listening to in about 2 months.
right.
We had that happen so many times in our stores. Like you would just have this band come through and nobody shows up. You know, you're just walking over there going, so yeah, can I get a autograph? Just trying to pretend like you didn't work there so they would think somebody's there. Oh my God. Yeah, that was one of the lessons I learned in the record stores. If you ever go into the music industry, if you're ever in a band, make sure that you treat everybody really well and just be glad to be there. Even if there's no one else there, your promoter or somebody just be glad to be there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Really quickly, Dan says, I remember some of my coworkers when it came to particular poppy acts playing, being like, I thought we got rid of them ages ago.
I knew that.
And really quick, I just want to say, if anybody else watching, if you have comments or questions, if you want to, tell us about your favorite discovery you ever made at a record store. If you worked at a store and have a story to tell, just drop it in the comments and we will get to it as quickly as we can. I was going to ask you guys about in-store appearances, if there were any cool ones while you were working, because I don't remember any at my stores. So Karin, I'm sure you had some.
No, not at Camelot, and okay. I think that might be because we were in a mall.
Yeah.
And the in stores, at least in the Atlanta area at that time, they tended to be like at the Turtle stores, which were always in strip centers.
Right.
And it made access way, way easier. And so the coolest that I can think of right offhand that I was involved with was when I worked at Turtles at the office. And we had a Prince in-store. I kid you not. A Prince in-store at our, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of, my coworkers would kill me. I can't think of what the name of our we had like a superstore in Buckhead, and it was a big ass store. It'll come to me at 3:00 this morning. I'll send you all an email.
Sounds good.
But yeah, we actually had Prince do an in-store, and it was one of those where we all kept, we were getting ready for it. We all were like, do you think he's really going to show up? Because, come on.
Right.
Because this was in the 90s. So, Prince was flipping off the charts huge. I don't know why he did it, but he did it. And it was funny because they told everybody that you weren't allowed to talk to him and that you weren't even supposed to look him in the eye. And, and I was like, but yeah, but it was an amazing in-store, and he turned out to be, pretty cool. But
yeah.
I did not get to talk to him one-on-one. I got to say hello, and that was that. Because, I was working or whatever. But that was the really, really cool one.
Oh, that's more than I've ever been able to say to Prince.
Well, I mean, yeah.
You can get a Ouija board and say something to him now, maybe.
No.
It was pretty amazing. That energetically, it was like, wow. I mean, the dude was he was deep.
Mm-hmm. All right, tell me about some of your regular customers. Did you have like people that came to you because you knew a certain thing that they loved? Did you have a bad interaction with somebody? Did you cultivate like a community of people that you related to and knew your store and made special trips to your store because you knew your shit?
Well, we had a bunch of people that came to read the book because, you used to have the big book of releases, and concerts and all that. So, yeah. And they would all come to do that because since we didn't have any major concerts coming, you had to figure out where the hell they were. And there was no internet. So, we had people that came in was it every Monday or every Tuesday you replaced the pages in the book? There was a day of the week. I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Put the new pages in. Yeah. But they would come in that day. And if we hadn't done it yet, they would wait in the store and stare at us till someone did it. And just stare at us till someone did it.
And I remember too, because you would get a shipment of however many new pages that you had to replace. This is long before computers. And you were just like, oh my God, I hope it's just like 5 pages this month.
And it was never just.
And it was like 75 pages.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
And they were paper thin, like the phone book.
Right.
And they would.
And people would steal them.
Yes.
And they would steal them all the time. And people would be like, what are the dates for Pensacola in August? I'm like, it's in the book. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Oh my God, it's not. Oh.
But we had that we had that huge book for the entire inventory of records from every record label. And you would have to, and so it was like in 2 sections, right? One was alphabetical by artist and one was organized somehow else. I don't remember.
Well, and then there were the blue pages for classical.
And the blue pages for classical, exactly. So somebody would say, so I'm looking for the 3rd album from B.B. King or whatever, and you don't have Google. So you go to the book and you have to flip over to the B.B. King page and you're like looking down and that's how you place special orders through that book. And you'd have to fill out a form and the form would go to the home office and insane.
And you know what's funny is, Alan, you'll appreciate this. Jeff Anatello used to come into my store and he found a special order. This was like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something. He found a Camelot bag with a special order that he had gotten from my store.
I remember this.
We're pretty sure that it was me that placed a special order for him. Isn't that funny?
I remember that because he posted a picture of it on Facebook.
Yes, yeah.
Holy smokes, that's hilarious. That is awesome.
Now, granted, I mean, I was around him a little bit. He went to a different high school, but he did date a girl that I knew at my high school. So, but yeah, I really knew him through him coming to my store. And I definitely had people that would come to the store to see me because they liked the stuff that I liked, and so they figured that I would be able to, turn them on to new stuff or whatever. Yeah. And I once went on a date with a guy just simply because he used to come in the store all the time and he looked just like Kiefer Sutherland's character from The Lost Boys.
Well, I can't say I would say no either.
He looked just like him, and I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll go.
That's hilarious. I met my best friend working at that store, and I haven't. Aww. It's a guy that I was friends with for years after that, but we met while I was working at the counter, and he came up, and I remember the first time I saw him, and we just clicked, and we became best friends and hung out all the time. So that was one good thing that came out of it.
That's awesome.
Todd, you've got.
The only one I had is the transition when I was first becoming manager and Kathy Mott was leaving. we used to have people that would not return movies. And at that time, we would literally go down to the police station and take out an affidavit because they were $80.
Yes.
And if you had 4 of them, we're talking about $300 worth of merchandise.
That's exactly right.
Well, the interesting thing is one of the guys was a famous ball player from the Boston Red Sox.
I remember this.
And I had no idea really about that. We used to take them in, periodically. She had filled it out, and I'd taken it down there, and the guy says, "Oh, this is Oil Can Boy." Now I've dropped the name. And I said, I don't follow baseball. Is that's what you say? Yeah. And when they came back in for their winter training, they served the warrant.
Wow.
Pretty soon,
that's crazy.
I'm in my store. I'm a new manager. The district manager happens to stop by, Jeff Clifford, and I'm sitting there, and we're getting calls from the Boston newspaper, ESPN. Do you have any comments? I'm like going, what is going on? He was notorious for being having a hot temper, and if you said the wrong thing, he would snap off. And of course, they made a big deal out of it, and it was like, we were no comment. Years later, well, probably not years later, probably within the year, he started coming into the store. He ended up being one of our best customers. He would come in and he'd go, "What's the new jazz stuff?" And you'd start going, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. He would buy them all.
Yeah.
An average sale for him was $350. Again, back in the 80s and 90s.
Wow.
And he would buy anything and everything. I had an employee, Dave Smith, that was a big jazz buff. And he would, anything he put in his hand, he would buy just without hesitation. He never held a grudge about that, even though he had a big temper tantrum at the time. I could blame him. Of course, the Boston Red Sox says, "Here, take a check. Would you just make this go away?"
Right.
And of course, this was at the time that they posted the titles, and there was some soft adult titles that were in there. All the titles were terrible, and there was like 5 of them. It was like even the horror movies were embarrassing.
Right.
When I saw the list of what he stole, I'm going, I'm not even going to miss these titles.
Right.
How long did you guys have movies in your store? Do you remember? Because we had, when I first started working at Camelot, we had movies and we had rentals actually. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it was maybe 2 years, and then they closed that part of it down.
Oh no, we kept them.
Did you really? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Up until probably started phasing them out early 90s, mid 90s.
Really?
It would have to be mid 90s. It wasn't when I was still there.
Yeah, it was. We were doing big business. In fact, one of our the one down in Miami, they had their video section did as much as some of the other bigger record sections did. They had a video business.
You must not have had Blockbuster nearby, I guess.
Oh, we had one right down the street. And
really?
We kicked their butts. And not because we had a better selection or anything, but we had a good selection. We had good buyers. And we also had people that knew what they were doing. And Blockbuster had a tendency to hire, a kid with a pulse. And
right.
if you went in there looking for the latest movie, they knew about it. But if you said, "Hey, I like Casablanca," what else would you just go? What's Casablanca? So we kind of went toe to toe with them, and we did all right. So yeah, we did some big business. In fact, when I was in the mall store, when we originally opened up, we had half of the store was video and half was everything else, records and CDs and everything. And we actually split that store up and put it outside so they could stay open when the mall closed, another 2 hours.
Wow.
Wow.
And we did killer business down there. Geez, I'm trying to think. Leslie Ruddle. Do you remember Leslie Ruddle?
Very, very well.
Yeah, she was the video manager in that store. And then she went over to the Lakeland Square Mall after that.
Yeah. Leslie Ruddle and Leslie Ross, both of them.
Leslie Ross, I know by name, but I didn't really know her.
They were fucking hilarious. I love them both. Anyway, Edward, you were going to say?
Oh, so just kind of on the subject of customers, I kind of realized that maybe we all had some from our local town. But the two most famous people I could think of that shopped regularly at ours was, if you remember this band at all, Wet Willie, because they were actually from Mobile, like most of their members were from Mobile, and Jimmy Buffett, because he grew up in the area, so we saw him all the time. And that's actually one of one set of music took me decades to ever listen to again was Jimmy Buffett, because I heard it so often. Every time I went to a bar in Mobile, he was playing there. There's a place called Patio Tools down on Airport Boulevard that he played like every weekend forever. And I used to go there to drink, and I was over it. It took decades for me to listen to him again.
Kind of like Leonard.
He's a super nice guy though. But yeah.
All right. Let me get a couple of comments. Dan says he enjoyed meeting Ocean Color Scene and KT Tunstall when they did in-store performances and signings at HMV.
Wow.
And
I thought about them.
Phil, sorry to cover up the two folks on the bottom row of the video, but Phil says, I didn't work at a record store, but worked at a department store just outside Montreal. We have an international audience here tonight, y'all.
That's cool.
They had a record section. Celine Dion and her mother would stop in often. Saw them quite a few times. This was in the late 80s, just as Celine signed her deal with Sony about 2 years before her first English album. Celine did an ad campaign for our store, and we all got to see a semi-private show to premiere the ad. That's cool. Wow. And he was front row at the small theater. That's pretty really awesome.
Cool. Oh,
that's very cool.
So that's a great question for you guys. Like, what was your favorite fringe benefit you got from working at a record store? Besides free albums, we all got those.
You were going to say besides the fringe benefits of.
Well, there were some of those too.
Well, for me, it was the free albums. I mean, I ended up being, and maybe you were too, Alan, doing single sales and being a singles buyer and billboard reporting. And so when you're a billboard reporter, all of a sudden the record labels come and smooze you because they want you to put their singles that they're working up in like the top 10 or top 20. I can't remember what it was that we recorded I don't know if you remember. And so that was here I am, I'm like 16 years old, and they're coming in and any record that I want from their record label, they're going to give that to me for free, or they'd come up and they'd go, I'm going down to the food court real quick. You want, an ice cream? They would schmooze me to try to get me to do stuff. And I thought it was the best thing ever. I mean, give me a free album, especially of somebody that I really like, and I'm like, I'm yours.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think we were all cheap dates like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And also, you sometimes, to me, this was more once I started working at a record label, but you also sometimes got free concert tickets.
Oh yeah, that was definitely my favorite thing.
That was yes.
All right, here's my free concert ticket story. I got to be good buddies with, there was a WEA, which is Warner Electra Atlantic. There was an office, a distribution point in Atlanta. And this is back when I was in Central Florida. And I got to be good friends with the girl who was the promotions person for our area, and she would send me stuff all the time. She would send me, I was like, hey, this one album is doing really well in our store, and can you send me some promotional items, posters or whatever? And she'd say, oh yeah, I'll send you that, and I'll send you some other stuff. And so I got to be, kind of like pals with her. And we were talking one day, and I was talking about Fleetwood Mac was going on tour. They sent me a thing. It was actually the Cruzados were opening and they wanted to push the Cruzados, and they sent me a big poster of the Cruzados.
Who are the Cruzados again?
Right. And so I wrote, like, hand drew on the bottom of the poster. It had a space for you to sign, write in what show they were going to be performing at or whatever, and the dates. So instead of just writing in opening for Fleetwood Mac, I recreated the Fleetwood Mac logo from the Rumors album. I measured it out and got every perfectly centered. Every letter was beautifully spaced. It was so accurate. One of the most and Todd, I don't know if you remember, I used to do logo header cards in our records collection for all the big bands.
That now.
Do you have a picture of that Cruzados poster?
No.
Oh, that's too bad.
But I wish I did, because I did it so incredibly perfect that it looked like it was right off the record, and it hung for at least 3 or 4 weeks before someone said, "Do you realize you left the T out of Fleetwood?"
No.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But I got to be buddies with the girl at WIA, and she was like, "Oh, well, if you like Fleetwood Mac, they're going to be performing
Fleetwood
here." Yeah, exactly. If you like Fleetwood Mac, they're going to be here at the Omni, and so why don't you drive up? I'll give you tickets. She took me to lunch. Me and a friend. She took us to lunch. She gave us a tour of the WIA warehouse. She gave us free stuff to take home with us. Like, here's some albums and stuff. And then we got third row concert tickets.
Wow.
I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Hey, Alan, is that Krista by any chance?
I don't remember. I wish I could remember.
She had blonde hair?
Yeah.
So she had blonde. Okay, I will, obviously not right now. I will send you a picture and you can see if it was her.
Okay. Please do. That was awesome. That was my best perk.
I didn't ever get third row to Fleetwood Mac. I did get free tickets, but
right.
It was awesome.
Awesome.
I got free tickets to go see Yes, and I think it was from Polygram. When was the Talk Tour? Was I on Polygram at that point?
No.
No, it wasn't Polygram.
No, it was.
It would have to be ABWH.
No,
Which labels?
That
was Arista.
It was. I think it was Arista.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they said I could get tickets to free tickets to Yes, I went, yes. You're kidding me. That was the third time I saw them, and they were absolutely brilliant. Orlando.
Where did they play?
Yeah.
Where did they play?
Orlando Arena.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which tour was it?
It was a Talk Tour.
The Talk Tour.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you said that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's the only time I've ever gotten free concert tickets, as far as I recall.
Really?
Unless someone gave them to me for my birthday. It was the only promo ones that I ever got.
I think Polygram may have given me who Jackal was a group that
No, Jackal was actually Warner Brothers.
They were WIA. You're right. They were
one of the WIA labels.
They were opening up for ZZ Top. I couldn't care less about seeing Jackal, but I sure took those free tickets to win and saw ZZ Top.
Hell yes.
But Jackal was fun. They were an absolute blast. I didn't really like the records, but live they put on a great show.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And I Jesse, the voice of Jackal, he used to work the door at a rock club that I lived at. Yeah, it's called Danny's. It's no longer around, Alan, but it was in Marietta on 41. And
Okay.
And I, as soon as I was of age, I was in the long-haired boy playing rock and metal. I'm there.
I'm telling you.
And he worked there for several years.
That's I forgot that they were out of Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I will say that they had a half stage. They had a curtain because ZZ Top had a bunch of big theatrical stuff. They kept slipping around the side of the stage and disappearing during the songs. Then coming back looking much happier.
Oh, days of payola,
right?
They were a blast and fun to watch.
Todd, I don't know if you remember this. There was a kid that worked at the Winter Haven store, the Black store, And I don't remember if it was while you were there or not, but he was this young kid. He was in college. He looked like Eddie Van Halen with blonde hair.
Okay.
He played guitar like Eddie Van Halen. Like
With blonde hair.
he was that good. Like he was such, but he was this like mathematical genius, and he was in school for engineering. And he was like, yeah, I really want to be a rock star, but you know, if that doesn't pan out, I'll be a space scientist or rocket scientist. I'm like, usually it's the other way around. The parents want you to go into the engineering field and you just want to be a rock star. But he's like, that's my fallback position, is being a NASA scientist.
Wow.
Oh my God. That kid
was he
funny.
the one that was taking classical guitar?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I cannot think of that kid's name.
He was amazing.
Jeff Robertson.
Oh, I don't know. He was a good worker, first of all.
He was.
I love that kid.
The only thing is, I would pop into my store. We had a rule that you couldn't play stuff that was too heavy, especially during the day and on Sunday. And I'd come in. He loved Ozzy Osbourne and Randy Rhoads.
Yeah,
and I'd come in and he would be blasting it. And I just walk in the door and go,
yeah.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. But Grandma over there is passed out from the noise.
Right. But I'll tell you what, I remember we used to like close the music off about 15 minutes till closing time, you know, to kind of like signal to the customers, you know, we're getting ready to close. It's time to get your asses out of here. So we would cut it off like 10 or whatever minutes before. But there was a couple of times when stragglers would keep shopping after you're closed. So about 5 minutes after closing, if there's still people in the store, I would drop the needle on some loud heavy metal thing and turn it up really loud. And they're like, hey, can you turn the music down? I'm like, look, we're closed. You're on my time now.
You know what we used to use to drive people out of stores? And I love the record, Tom Waits' Bone Machine.
I don't remember that.
That's a good album, but yeah, if you're not into it, yeah.
But the average listener, all you got to do is drop that record in and boom, they're gone.
The last store I was at, we used the B side of the 45 for In Excess of Suicide Blonde. I can't remember what the damn name of the song is, but it was just this avant-garde crap that was awful, and it guaranteed like people would.
Oh, that's funny.
Store. Yeah, I wish I could.
I'm going to find out.
Yeah, it was the B side of Suicide Blonde on 45.
Right on.
We still had a 45/jukebox in the store.
Everybody Wants You Tonight.
That's the one. That's the one. It's terrible. It's awful.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Now I'm gonna have to go listen to it.
Right.
Yeah. It would drive. No matter who it was, they would leave.
If we had a rough day at the mall, after everyone was out, we used to blast Rage Against the Machine. We couldn't play it in the store, obviously, but afterwards, blast wide open. Security would come by and going, "What are you playing?"
We used to we would blast music after we had closed, and you know, we were cleaning up and counting your drawer down and all that, and we actually we blew out a speaker to Let's Go Crazy, Purple Rain one night. And yeah, it was like a couple of days later, my manager
nothing wrong with that.
It's like, you know, because there were several speakers going through. It was a large store and kind of rectangular shape, and there were several speakers. And he was standing in front of the affected speaker, and he's like, does that? Do you guys know? We're all like, no, I don't know. I never even noticed it. You know.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. All right, so we're about out of time.
We're up against it.
We are totally up against it. So I just want to talk really quickly about the current model of shopping for music, basically, where everything is cloud-based, everything is Spotify, everything is iTunes. You know, anything that you can sit in your room at 3:30 in the morning and you have access to basically every recording that's ever been made. I mean, it is an incredible time to be a music fan when you have access. Anything that you can't find for sale on one of those services, you can find on YouTube, you know, or you can find a live version of it on YouTube, or you can find a demo of it on YouTube that you've never heard before. So talk really quickly about the difference between the current environment and when shopping for music used to be driving to a record store, walking down the aisles, flipping through records, to find, and you would discover a new band that way, but you'd have to wait until you got home to hear it. I mean, the world's a different place for music now.
It is, but honestly, to my mind, it's the same thing as the video industry. Like when we had to go to Blockbuster and stuff like that, it's still the same because you're still having to flip through all these services and all these different songs and go down rabbit holes and stuff like that. And honestly, I spend just as much time like sitting on the Netflix menu as I ever did walking to a video store.
Trying to
decide what the hell I want to watch.
That is true.
It's absolutely crazy. But we have access to so much music now. Everybody and their brother can produce it in their house pretty cheaply. And I think it's a great time because we have the access. And I mean, I'm kind of glad sometimes I don't have to drive to as much as I'd like to being in the store.
Right.
I'm okay with like just flipping through the channels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except that for me, if it's something that I really, really like, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy the physical copy. I mean, I still buy CDs or vinyl, kind of just depending on,
I do too. I still have physical copies of anything that I want to keep. And add to my collection. I still buy the physical copy.
Yeah. Okay.
And any band that I see live, I will pick up their stuff if I like it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
there you
go.
Physical copy.
That's awesome.
Well, that's one of the greatest lessons I learned in a music store, as a short topic, is go to any show that you can afford to go to.
Yeah.
Just go watch somebody because you never know who you're going to see before they're anyone or somebody you're going to love. And I mean, go to shows, listen to music. Something comes on your random player, just listen to it.
There you go.
Wow. So you need to come see my band then. We're getting ready to put a CD out. So
I will buy it.
That's awesome.
All right, Karin, who's your band and where can people find them?
Well, so I'm talking about my original band, which is called Blacklight Midnight. And we don't have anything out yet, but we are getting ready to put out our first album. It's pretty exciting. And I mean, and I also have a cover band, but I mean, I love my band, but we don't put out CDs. But yeah, so Blacklight Midnight, we're hard rock, kind of a little bluesy hard rock, I guess is the way to put it. So.
All right, let me get a couple of final comments from our buddy Dan in Scotland. I remember learning about Stockhausen at music college, then asking about it at various local record stores, and no one had heard of it. Of course. I mean, I went to, when I was working at Specs, I was going to Polk Community College at the time, and I was studying music. And I was going to transfer to a university to study music history or whatever. And so, you could have come to my store, and I would have known. He also says... Secret Machines, Beechwood Sparks, and I Am Clute are some of my favorite finds from record stores years ago. I've heard of I Am Clute.
Wow.
I don't know the other two, though.
I don't either.
And he says, brilliant. Rock on, Karin. Blacklight Midnight. Blacklight.
Thank you.
All right.
You realize you left the T out of it?
All right. So you guys, any final thoughts? Any final memories that you want to share?
I've got one more. When I was working at the Winter Haven Mall store,
okay,
I had someone that came in, and he walked to the door. He says, "I'm on a pilgrimage from Oregon to the birthplace of Graham Parsons."
Wow.
He says, "Can you tell me anything about Graham Parsons?" I'm going, "You're probably talking to one of 5 people in Winter Haven who knows who Graham Parsons is." I said, "You can go anywhere in the world and mention Graham Parsons, and they know him. In his hometown, nobody knows him."
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. Since then, the original garage where his band used to play, they have rebuilt it and revamped it, and they're doing concerts there. It's called the Dairy Down. And I thought
nice.
It's cool that they're finally recognizing Graham Parsons. And if you say, well, do you know what country rock is? He basically invented it.
Yeah.
and it's just interesting in his own hometown. Nobody knew him. And it was like, this guy was like, I'm from Oregon. I've come all the way from Oregon to see this. I'm like going, he goes, where are some of the places that he used to play? I'm going, they're torn down.
Right.
Oh, that's too bad.
It is, but but it's cool that they rebuilt the garage. His stepdad literally turned a garage back in the old days where you used to drive in and get your car fixed.
Right.
They turned it into a teen club, so his band would have a place to play.
That's
and
wow.
they reopened it. And in fact, they've got all these bricks out there, and the guys from Poco and the Eagles have their names on it. There's one of the original Flying Burrito brothers that plays there and still plays around here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
I haven't thought about
but-
Poco.
but-
Wow.
yeah.
Alan's in the vortex.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he's ISP may have flipped away.
I think he's up. Now it's just us.
Uh-oh.
And now we're the hosts.
Okay, I had to quote 2112, but we have assumed control.
Yes. Yes. Now I just wonder if anyone's actually watching us since he's
Well,
not
it still says live.
He may have pulled the plug on us like we used to do with playing the loud, obnoxious music. It closed.
Right. He's just like, I'm gonna let these people sit in a room and talk to each other. What the hell?
Well, this has been an absolute blast.
This has been so much fun, and I'm sure we could probably talk for several more hours.
Although I am going to go here and go find my Musicland badge because now that I've seen yours.
All right, so here we are in time to say
He went to a different committee.
Yeah.
You're in a different room.
Yes.
Okay.
I just flip around to wherever I need to be. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Edward, Karin, Todd, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed this discussion.
Me too.
Loved
Thank you.
any opportunity to relive the glory days of working in a record shop. Man, it's the best time of my life.
Absolutely. Me too.
Yeah.
Best job ever.
Yeah. All right. So you guys take care. Everybody watching, we'll be back next Sunday night with an interview with Hughes Taylor, blues guy from Atlanta, phenomenal talent. The week after that, we're doing a wrap up of SNL musical guest. And so I'll see you then. Take care. Have a great week. Be kind to each other. And we will see you next time.